the body likes it so much, it's going to start growing and healing the areas that need to be more efficient to make this work for you better. Welcome back to Uncivilized Rebirth. I have a question for you. Do you ever feel like just some major part of your existence is missing and just there's an emptiness there? What if that part of your life that you were missing was focusing on your breath and really engaging with the air? Because without the air and breathing it in to inside us at a cellular level, we cannot operate as well. Our muscles won't work as well. Our brains won't work as well. And if we don't practice this, our bodies internally will not be that good at getting the energy from the air to every part of our body as fast as possible, down to the cellular level. Well, when you practice something, it gets better at it, and it gets better at it, and train at it. And I was told that perfect practice makes perfect. Well, I wouldn't say that with breath work. I think breath work is like a tree growing. It grows with age, and it gets larger and it spreads out more. And I'll explain the analogy there. So there's not a perfect practice to it. Reason being because most people have different musculature going on. So wherever you're at, that's how your breath work is going to work. Though the overall structure is going to be the same on the processes to start, to be able to start engaging more with your breath work and being more attuned and focused on it. So imagine this. You have a car and the oil system goes all over the place in the engine for however that works. And the car can understand where that oil goes everywhere inside of it. Just imagine that analogy there. It can't really, but imagine that. Well, our air that we breathe in is what allows us to animate our bodies. And when we practice breathing, even from any state, like being like really weak to really strong, and if it's a practice you haven't already done, like for me, for 37 years, I hadn't ever practiced or worked on breath work. And wherever it was, that's where I started. But the thing is, the more I learned about it, the more benefits I saw when I would use what I learned. And then I started expanding my knowledge database on learning from others of like how to tighten the core muscles, like what order to do that in, and what do you think about when you're doing this? Because as I've talked about previously, energy follows awareness. Guess what air is? Air is energy, and it follows your awareness. So if you think about breathing in, guess what? The air breathes into your lung or goes into your lungs and is following your awareness. Try that hat on for size. The fact that your awareness, or even at a sub-level, that your breathing does on its own, but when you tell your body to breathe in, it follows your awareness. So you can override, basically, there's this record playing consistently of just breathe, 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 breathe. But when you focus on your core muscles, your lungs, your brain, you're basically taking that record off and you're stopping that. So it's this program that's running in the background all the time. And basically, you're kind of pressing Control-Alt-Delete. And it's like, all right, I'm going to pause everything right here and I'm going to do my own thing. And that's what you want to do. You don't want your body running off program that's been programmed in externally. For example, if somebody runs really hard And then at the end of a 400-meter sprint, they sit there doubled over and they're throwing their arms up and they're just breathing super fast and super heavy and just like acting all wild. Well, if somebody sees that, it goes in those data banks of like, oh, that's how to breathe when you exhaust yourself that much. And it will repeat that like with the actions, and you'll program it in, like not really knowing you're doing that. So imagine running 400 meters as hard as you can, and you're just stopped, and you can stand there and control your breathing and just breathe calm, cool, and collected. And that's basically stepping away from the old paradigm of when you're fully exhausted, you're just like, put your hands up here, breathing heavy, to the new paradigm of the next exercise you're doing immediately is just contracting your core. So just imagine all of that is just the next part of your movement. Like you're done running, but now the next part is just to hold your core and breathe in very, very deep. And then imagine all at once all of your muscles and all of your muscle groups. And you can program and train in, you'll see where I'm going with this, train in the breathing techniques to oxygenate your system faster, to replenish it. And this is a little more advanced in breath work, but I'm just trying to explain where it can get you to the point where you can go all out physically and then boom, be totally refreshed. Because the body gets better at what it does over and over and over. And if you have intentionality about it, it'll get faster. So let's say you're looking at the inside of the lungs, and the very tendrils at the very end of the lungs, like the lung bag thing, it's not really a bag, it's like an inside out like sea urchin or something, or inside out mushroom with all these like fingers, and it ends at like, I think it's called alveoli, I want to say. And that's very tippity tip, and that's like where the oxygens go in and out there. But then there's all this surface area. So there's all these tendrils that are sticking out of your lungs. And that, in the smaller parts, like that's where it's going to get picked up and sent at the cellular level. Because if you think about it, like it's basically taking this massive stuff and at a level you cannot see is pulling out these molecules or resources on a large scale. It's like separating. It's separating an item out. So think about it as this filter. It's leaving, you're like, ugh, and then you breathe it out. You're breathing something out. But it's pulled something out of that core amount that's in your lungs. It's pulled something out, then put in the excess back into that material. So if you look at this as a barrier, which your lungs are, go from the barrier to the blood stream to get it to you to the cellular level. So you just took in this large volume of, let's say air is gasoline, this large volume of a substance that is of a different makeup into your lungs. And now there is a resource in it that's getting pulled out like that. So the more you do that, and here's how you do that. I'll get that to in a minute. The more you do that, the body likes it so much, it's going to start growing and healing the areas that need to be more efficient to make this work for you better. And that's from going into your lungs, separating it, and sending it to your cellular level as fast as possible. And it's way faster than you can possibly imagine. So, how do you practice this? Here is my journey. I'll keep it short in breath work and how I ended up like with that understanding. The first time I started with breath work, I was told to just sit there in the lotus position and do belly breathing and do that like 3 to 7 times in the morning, but would be really focused and breathing my lung, filling up my lungs and breathing in that air. And so I did that. I was like, oh man, I like this. Like I noticed a difference, but it wasn't something that I stuck with on my own. I did it kind of in and out. And then I ran upon this guy called Joe Dispenza, and he started teaching this breath work where you tighten all your intrinsic muscles, your bathroom muscles, your core, your lower back, like you're going to the bathroom and just holding everything as tight as you can and try to touch your belly button to your spine. And basically you're just squeezing everything as tight as you can down there below the lung bags. I'm going to call them lung bags. So everything's getting super squeezed below here. And then what you're doing is kind of like a contradictory thing to the way your program usually runs. While everything's core, the whole core is tight, you breathe in as deep as you can. And you keep the core tight. So you're kind of doing two backwards things, like expanding the torso and tightening the core. But when you initially tighten the core, you only tighten it to about 80%. You don't give it 110%. Once you fill the lungs up, you give 110% on everything down there, tightening all that up. Here's what it does. Oh, wait, let me back up. While you're doing that, you want to make sure you focus at the base of your brain and the top of your spine. That's where you want your focus to be while you're performing this action. Here's what happens. Your lungs fill up and your core tightens, and you're creating overpressure in your lung sac. With that overpressure, you're forcing those little tendrils either to expand more or force them to grow. And when you do this on a regular basis, it knows that it just needs to maintain that level of expansion in the lungs. Guess what that expansion does? That expansion gives you more surface space to get more oxygen to your system, to your cellular level. So any type of growth or expansion in there gives you more access to a volume of energy that you could not access before the expansion and cleaning of your lungs, the inside of them. This is part of breath work. It's an entire world, like it's its own thing that I had never paid attention to or thought about. So the best time to program this in, though, is at night, just laying on your back when you're as comfortable as possible. And you tighten your core and you breathe in as deep as you can. You put your focus or awareness where I said to, and you tighten everything up very tight. You do that and hold it. Joe Dispenza, he would have, when I was doing that breath work, I would hold it for maybe 12 to 20 seconds, but it's hard though. It's very hard. You're not relaxed whatsoever. And here's the thing, it takes a force of will to do this. But the reason that you're practicing it as comfortably as possible is because you want to focus on actually the muscles and where your attention is and just get all those like fine-tuned details of this breath. Then when you get to use this breath, because as you practice, you're expanding your lungs and you're expanding the ability to get that oxygen throughout your body at the cellular level faster. The best place to do this, once you've been training it and learning it, is when you're on let's say a row machine or a seated bike. I would say a seated bike because it's the easiest, hardest, laziest thing to do. You're just sitting there, but you can go crazy hard with your quads. But still, it's just like a lazy place to be. For me, it is, and I like doing it. But it's like super hard, but super lazy. Here's how I would start implementing this breath. Is I would go just as hard as I could on the highest level until my legs were about to give out. And then I would take this deep, deep, deep breath, focus inside my muscles, and think about it. I would envision what my muscles feel like. I would feel my muscles. I would feel the burning, and I would know that what I'm breathing into my lungs is going to replenish all of that. Because my muscles are not broken. They are screaming for more fuel, faster. Guess what? I've been expanding my lung sacs through breath work and overpressure, or pressurizing them to expand, forcing it. So now I have this ability programmed in to force more oxygen in. And energy follows where awareness goes. So if you think about inside those muscles, feel them, tighten the core, take a big deep breath, and you can do this because even though you're in exhaustion, you've been practicing this. So you've been programming a little program to put in. So basically, you focus on everything, you lift the needle, you take off the regular programmed in breath breathing, like I'm going to hyperventilate or freak out. But then you insert, tighten the core, expand the lungs, or fill them up, and then tighten the core more and focus on the inside of your quads if you're on the seated bike. You have far more capacity now to replenish those muscles that need fresh energy in a much shorter amount of time. The more you do this, the better your body gets better at replenishing those specific spots, like right then. Because the muscle's not broken whatsoever, and you're still breathing. Basically, you have a lot of blood vessels in there that get filled up, and they aren't getting replenished, and they're just like getting a pump. But you don't always need just a pump. You need to go to full capacity at the cellular level, but then you need to still be moving all that blood through there. You shouldn't be going for this in my opinion, of a massive pump. And then it's like, well, okay, cool. You have a ton of stuff that's slammed into this one area that's just sitting there. But so you're pulling blood usage from other parts of your body when you get just one area super pumped. So you don't want to train your muscles for that. You want to go to about like 75% of your capacity and go until you give out. And you will teach your muscles not to start getting to pump, but to keep refreshing. But each time it has a large capacity. So imagine it's like, you know how when you're doing like 10 reps to get a pump, and you're like on rep 12 and you set it down. What if you could mimic that exact spot when you're in endurance, that each rep feels like that 12th? Where it's like you got this full capacity, but you have endurance, and it can be done over and over and over. So you're basically working on programming in that 12th one, but maybe it feels like the 8th level of pump. So you're programming in that one to be done over and over and over and over. And the only way to achieve that is to make each rep demand the full capacity of your muscle. But you need to have the ability to start replenishing that oxygen, because it's going to be at full capacity, almost full capacity for a long period of time. And the only way to do that is to get oxygen to it through breath work. Now check this out. Here's a bonus. When you need to expand all of your muscles, you need more volume in your blood. So to get more volume in your blood, when you do your breath work, you're automatically adding volume to your blood, because you're forcing the new fuel in there, oxygen. So the more you can use that breath work to force it into your blood, the more blood you will have to spread around your body, because it's not red blood cells that are expanding it. It's the oxygen inside your bloodstream that is expanding the volume of the blood. So now you could go from having like a lot of blood going on in your quads, but you need it in your back too, because you're doing like a major activity. It is possible with your breath work to get more volume of blood for a short amount of time, for much more capacity, for usage of your muscles overall at a higher capacity for a longer period of time. So breath work has a lot of benefits to it. And as we read in the Bible, there's stories about how it was the breath of life that brought Adam to life, that was made from dirt. So we know we're made from dirt and we had breath put in us, but it's like we don't operate without breath. So we will work better if we have a higher capacity to bring in oxygen at a cellular level, like as fast as we can and as efficiently as we can. And this is like a base work for where you begin to do your breath work to start programming in the character trigger, because you start here and then when you build off this, you'll start realizing, oh, that makes a lot of sense. While this is one of the fundamental areas to do all of this. Okay, I'm done. That's breath work. I hope you like it.